Okay, I'm live. Not really prepared. Should close all my other tabs. What are we talking about? Um, so what I've been thinking about recently is what unites something into a thing. Um, I think a lot of people use tons of different language for this. Uh, what, what is a body? Um, the idea. One of the things that I have in the title of this is Cosmos. And I had this tab open. I was looking at all this stuff. Oh, I closed it. But I was doing I was doing some textual study online with a Greek lexicon for this verse, which is from First John 2 of they went out from us because they were not really of us. And man alive, sometimes I wish I knew Greek or Hebrew or something, but it doesn't. Knowing the Bible in the original language does not really prevent. It doesn't necessarily add to greater understanding. Um, this is the whole knowledge puffs up, but love edifies. Just because you can become an expert in something. You can know a lot of facts in it. What up, Jonathan? And not know as you ought to know, right? I think McMo was saying as much in the last live stream, but he was saying, he um, and I found this in many different facets of my life, but like an illustration that I like to say is I remember, I don't know, a few years back, I don't know how long ago it was, but David Bentley Hart and NT Wright were just going back and forth in this uh, blog posting, arguing these points of, I don't even remember what they were arguing about at the time, but both of those guys. So I think NT Wright has made his own translation of the New Testament, which is another interesting thing. Like, is a personal translation of the New Testament as a personalist, right? I should say that. Oh, I should also put this other link in there that Sovereign Love, my boy Wayne Fair, sent to me the other day from Wayne. If you're here and listening, who was the guy who wrote that? Alexander or something? I'll maybe, well, you can't put this in the comments. I'll maybe see if in the description, I'll maybe put it, see if Nate will add it to the description, edit this for me. But it was about personalism. McMo, what up? So, two people, David Bentley Hart and N.T. Wright, who both know Greek better than I ever know. Like, I really like wine, and I remember this master sommelier, if you know what wine is. I once read an article about this master sommelier, Greg Harrington. Shout out Greg Harrington. And who, man, it'd be cool to talk to him. I had a slight relationship with him, email relationship a long time ago. But he Paul Axton. Yeah, is that the one you shared with me? That's why I was Axe. I was thinking Alexander, but Paul Axton. Probably that one on personal knowing. Yeah, that one's excellent. Or like if you can put in the comments, his blog or whatever it is. It's really good. It's like all my stuff, man. It's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that with me. But this line about Greg Harrington, Master Sommelier's knowledge, what does the vastness of your knowledge in this propositional mode equate to true knowing? No, because Jesus, you search the scriptures because in them you think you have life, but you don't realize it's they that teach about me, the person. The person is the most fundamental knowing. That's probably the easiest way to say it. It's the most fundamental thing. Period. It's not even a thing. Uh, Smuggling thing. When we say thing, we're like objectivist smuggling. We're thinking of a substance ontology in a world of dead objects. A thing. Persons are fundamental. You cannot see or taste knowledge. What up, Marylander? I'm not going to say your real name because I don't know if you want to, but I was thinking about you the other day, brother. This is morphic resonance. Uh, relational ontology. It was we're connected somehow in a morphic field, and I thought about you, and here you are. Serendipity. Uh, it's real. Spirits are real, man. Fields are real. Um, so Greg Harrington, sommelier, wine. The first line of this article talking about him said, uh, "He has forgotten more about wine than you'll ever know." And I was just like, "What a yes, that's true. That's such a great line." And if you know anything about the wine world and a sommelier, and then a master sommelier, and a great documentary, I don't know, I love it. Somm, which would be fun to watch with my kids sometime because it's just interesting. Is how hard it is to become a master sommelier and how competitive that is. It's ridiculous. You essentially the requirement is essentially like know everything about wine ever, the history of wine. Mandy, what up? So know everything about know all the propositional facts about wine, but also be able to blind taste test three different wines, three whites and three reds, and tell us what they are. Tell us uh, the the vintage, the year. Tell us the varietal, the species of grape or the subspecies of grapes. It's all the same grape species, I believe. See, this is I've forgotten this about wine too, and and tell us perhaps even the vineyard and even the block and maybe even the sub block. So like these guys, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous what you need to know. And it's practical knowledge too. And so when it comes to the Bible or when it comes to God or when it comes to theology or when it comes to any realm of knowledge, any realm of study, any realm of academia, uh, it's like in infinity, if not, this is where Jordan Peterson and knowledge and vision and salience, because you have an infinite, when you're looking in a room, you have an infinite number of things you could look at. But why do you look at the certain things that you look at? When you enter into any field of knowledge, there's an infinite number of facts. Why are they arranged the way that they're arranged? Why do you look at and notice certain ones versus others? It's infinite. You could have it's like a drop in the ocean. Your knowledge is compared to infinity is always a drop in the ocean. You could always know infinitely more. And that's using the objectivist approach to knowledge. So it's just like how far McMoset talked about this. It's one of my favorite things. Falling off, it's learned ignorance. Knowing that you don't know. Falling off the peak of Mount Stupid. Boom. You can go into it. All right. Let's circle back. Cosmos. I think I was talking about Cosmos, the Bible. No, and then this verse from First John. They went out from us because they were not of us. This is a little. My thinking of this, I think, is stemming from a meditation and contemplating on. Yeah, Psalm is good. On become like little children. Man, what does it mean to become like a little child? When Jesus takes the child on his knee, and he's like, to enter the kingdom of God, you need to become like a small child. And McDonald plays with this all the time. Uh, you're a young one, or you're not yet grown, or you're not yet, you're still young. Youthfulness. C.S. Lewis plays on this all the time in Paralandra too. The Eve character and growing, becoming more knowledgeable, becoming more mature. Um, One of the things, what prompted my new thought about First John 2, this verse, they went out from us because or but or whatever, they were not of us. Because in the Greek, all that is it's amazing if you look up a lexicon of that verse. There's very few Greek words. But like there's a lot of English words. And so like what is really happening in Greek, they're different languages. Translation is never a one to one. So like even when you're doing within the realm of biblical translation, you can go word for word, literal translation, or you can go paraphrase, what interpreting, what does it mean? Uh, but like the thing is like you're always doing that. Even if you go literal word for word, there isn't such a thing. There is no exact word for word in any language comparison. There's cognates, things are close, but it's never one to one. And so when you're looking at this in Greek, this verse, there's just not a lot of words there. And so, what does it mean to become like a small child? It's maybe to be in this learned ignorance where here's something about a kid. A kid, at least at a certain stage, I would argue it starts to change a little bit around middle school. The concretization, adolescence, puberty, and there's a lot of interesting facets about this that are that I like to think about. Is that, like, for example, your accent. Um, I heard this. I don't know that it's true. What's up, Cato? What's up, William? Anthony. Uh, your accent is actually concretized when you go through puberty. So, like a kid who's raised in a certain thing, England or something, who then moves to the US, they'll have an English accent, but then that'll change over time. But if the kid moves before they hit puberty, they'll lose a lot of their accent. If they move after they've hit puberty, they'll retain that accent to a much more significant degree, and it'll just stay with them forever. It's like concretized. I think that has something to do with this ego, this thinking that this, like, which is more than just your awareness. It's more than your conscious awareness. It has to do with the unconscious. It has to do with this greater part of, like, who you are at these unconscious fundamental levels. And um and I think becoming like a child to enter the kingdom of God is being in this place where, 1 Corinthians 8, you don't have this built, you don't think that you know more than you know. You have this humility to just, the world is a place of wonder, which, again, shout out back to that Firas Zahabi um, conversation with Joe Rogan on where they debate scientific truth. Oh man, I'm just going to talk about that because I love it. No, I do not have a Minnesota accent because I'm not from here originally. I moved here after puberty. Um, and interestingly, I've lost a little bit of my accent. I grew up in Western South Dakota, which Western South Dakota, sorry, an aside, has a little bit of a weird, or at least some people there, like my dad, has a little bit of a drawl. So, like, if I get around my dad, I'll start to say things. Well, I mean, I won't. I'll say "ain't" a lot more. My dad will say things like wash your clothes," but he gets a little bit of that drawl. It's not quite like a Texas drawl, but it's kind of like it. I don't know. It's weird. I don't know why that is. But when I'm around him, I start to talk like him more. Um, so, Firas Hobby, Joe Rogan, they debate scientific truth. Firas Hobby, the main point he tries to make in that conversation, because I've watched it many times and talked about it many times, is he says science, because Rogan is kind of blindly an adherent to, he's an objectivist, like pretty much all modern post secular, post Christian, unconscious Tom Holland, secularity people are. Like, everyone in the modern liberal world is essentially an objectivist. Like, that's the water we swim in, that we don't even know we're wet. And so he's a scientific. Science is the truth. And C.S. Lewis said this. The prophets of the New Age will be the scientists, or the priests. Who the priestly class who tell us all the dogma. These are the scientists, right? That we take on faith. And so Firas Zahabi says science is the faith that the future will behave like the past. And so essentially, what science is, this is why I like to talk about radical empiricism, because empiricism and science are different. And so empiricism is just straight observation. So, like, if you don't map a scientific narrative onto your empiricism is just phenomenology, phenomenal, phenomena, phenomena. So, phenomenology. So, just raw observation. And he tries to illustrate it by saying, like, he talks about a coin flip. So he's like, if you flip a coin, what are the chances it'll be heads or tails? And Rogan's smart, but he's not. He doesn't. Rogan does not talk to or think about philosophy or theology very well, which is, philosophy is the queen of the sciences, right? Isn't that what people say? And the love of wisdom, which is deeper than this kind of academic, uh, discursive reasoning, logic bound thing. Philosophy is bigger than that. It's objectivism, rational thought is nested in that. And so Prosser Hobby says, you flip a coin, and Rogan's, you know, smart. Like, sorry, listen, Rogan, I love you, Joe. If you listen to this, I like you. But this answer is like a smart fifth grader. And so he's like, Well, it's 50-50, but it could land on its side. So it's not exactly 50-50, and and the weight is maybe not distributed exactly equally, and so whatever, So he's trying to give a smart but trapped in this logic bound thing answer. And Farasahabi is like goes into that this is all based in statistics and but experience, but there's something more fundamental than that. He said, so you have all this experience that flipping a coin, this is what happens every time. This or this, this or this. And then you future project that past experience, the memory, go into a long conversation on memory that I haven't even got around to my main topic. That the future will behave like the past. What you remember from the past, so these flips, heads or tails, you future project in your memory. So, like the potential, because you don't know the future, nobody does. It doesn't, that what you remembered before. If you didn't remember what happened before, you'd have no idea. And this is Faras's point. Is he's trying to say science is the faith, the past, and what you remember from the past will behave like the future. And so he says, like, if you had no memory of a coin flip or what a coin was, no previous knowledge, no memory, you could not remember what a coin was. No knowledge of it. And you saw a coin for the first time and you're like, "Oh, look at that. That's interesting." And someone flipped it and he says it turns into a butterfly and flies away. You'd be like, "Whoa, that's cool." You'd be surprised. You'd have the mind of a child. You'd have wonder. So that's empiricism, right? The coin flipped, turned into a butterfly. Empiricism. That's not science. Science is then mapping a narrative onto that. This is actually going to get into Religio and Credo and distinguish the two. I hope in a way that we can talk about community and communion and what binds something together and estuary and all those things that I'm thinking about. This is all context. So you flip the coin, butterfly. Flip the coin again, butterfly. Flip the coin again, butterfly. And then you say, what's going to happen now when I flip this coin? Well, it's going to turn into a butterfly. Science. You've entered the realm of credo. You've entered the realm of narrative where the memory of the past behaves like the future. And to somebody who's like a philosophical materialist will just be like, well, that's ridiculous. A coin can't turn into a butterfly. That's because you have very strong faith that this coin is going to behave in a certain way. And yes, this is based on all your experience, but here's a great quote. I'm going to post it in here and put it up on the screen. Samuel Johnson, memory is the purveyor of reason. You could chew on that a lot. So, I don't think I knew what purveyor meant when when I first ran across this quote, but I knew this quote was like gold, and and I was like, "Dang, that's good." And that has been like the seed, the germ, which has made me think a lot about memory, connected to Rupert Sheldrake and Morphic fields. Because that's the thing. If you had no memory of a coin, your science is wrecked. This is why people who are objectivists don't understand there's something more fundamental than your logic, which is memory. Like even the postmodernist, which is like 2 + 2 = 5. Here's the thing: if you didn't remember what two was, if you didn't remember what plus was, if you didn't remember what equals was, you couldn't do math. So memory is setting the table. It's the purveyor of your reason. If you didn't have memory, you couldn't reason. Yeah, totally. So Father Eric, yes. So there's a great David Bentley Hart quote, which I may read on Memoria, which is an Augustine thing, right? I haven't read Augustine. Nate and I have talked about Augustine. I've read some, a little bit, mainly quotes. Uh, but I think Nate and I have talked about this. If Nate is here, he's maybe not. I don't even know if Nate watches these anymore. This has kind of just become my own little thing. Uh, but Augustine, like any person who's a thinking person, who's like a child, who doesn't become concretized in what they think they know, evolves through their life. They're a flip flopper. They change their views. You know, they come across new evidence. Again, that's the narrative of objectivism. Evidence. You're a foundationalist of some sort. Again, shout out to that great article by whatever by Paul Axton on personalism because foundationalism is silly. It's silly tales. Um, you oh, I totally lost myself. Let me see if I can find this David Millie Hart thing on Memoria. So good. From In Memoria. Okay, yeah. Should I just read this? Oh man, it's really long. Well, part of it's a Douglas, or part of it's a McDonald quote. I'm gonna read it. 2 paragraphs. Is that okay? Stick with me. So this is quotes from In Memoria. I think David Bentley Hart quoted this somewhere, but or this is David Bentley Hart about Memoria. Yeah. So excess of memory is also an excess of intentionality on the part of the subject, which is experienced as a kind of futurity, future. The immemorial, in its total coexpansiveness, is one with fullness of being. There's so much in this. Like the immemorial, in its total coexpansiveness, is one with fullness of being. Whoa. It's the mystery of being. It's the entirety of being with the intentionality of a rational nature. Uh, that the intentionality of a rational nature wants to understand and be at one with, basically God. Wow, that's a baller of a sentence. It's the mystery of being. It's the entirety of being that the intentionality of a rational creature wants to understand and be at one with, basically God. I mean, there's a reason why for Augustine, Memoria, remembering God, and Memoria in the full sense, not as recollection, but as the full contents of the mind. And I don't know, that's connected with mind stuff that Origin plays with too. But um, I shouldn't interrupt this that much. Okay. Memory in the full sense, not as recollection, but as the full contents of the mind, edges upon the divine nature. That's where one gets the sense one approaches the mystery of God, because God is the ground of Memoria. He's the fullness of being and truth that informs and is the foundation of the little degree of truth and the little degree of existence that we're able to possess consciously and actively in the world. So that's the David Bentley Hart quote. And so now here's an Augustine quote. I think Sherry shared this all with me once. Uh, For the mind cannot love itself, except also it know itself. For how can it love what it does not know? Or if anybody says that the mind, from either general or special knowledge, believes itself of such a character as it has by experience found others to be, and therefore loves itself, he speaks most foolishly. For whence does a mind know another mind, if it does not know itself? Here you go, Paul, with your secret sacred self nonsense. For the mind does not know other minds, and not know itself, as the eye of the body sees other eyes and does not see itself. For we see bodies through the eyes of the body, because, unless we are looking into a mirror, we cannot refract and reflect the rays into themselves which shine forth through these eyes, and touch whatever we discern. A subject indeed which is treated of most subtlety and obscurely, until it be clearly demonstrated whether the fact be so, or whether it be not. But whatever is in the nature of the power by which we discern through the eyes, certainly, whether it be rays or anything else, we cannot discern with the eyes that power itself. But we inquire into it with the mind, and if possible, understand even this with the mind. As the mind then itself gathers the knowledge of corporeal things through the senses of the body, so of incorporeal things through itself. The eye of the mind, right? Not you get it, hopefully. Therefore, it knows itself also through itself, since it is incorporeal. For it does not know. For if it does not know itself, it does not love itself. Now there's a lot there. It's really good. Maybe I'll send that to Nate too if I can remember all this and put it in the notes so people can just read it. Um, but rationality isn't ultimate. Uh, Memory and imagination probably is. And this is why I talk a lot about the hard problem of all perception. People talk about the hard problem of consciousness, but like evidence, foundationalism, rationality, there's something behind it. You can't measure the measurer, you can't see the seer, you can't remember the rememberer. Like you, the person, is fundamental to all of that. So, I think it was from Memoria. I'm not sure what the passage was from. Sorry, Kaido. Um, so, how does this all relate? Memory, uh, Firasa hobby, scientism, memory, radical empiricism, narrative, religio, credo. So the narrative. This is religio and credo, right? Religio, great Rob Bell episode. We were talking about Rob Bell with Matt in the Grail Country Discord. Um, but because we were talking about Calvinism um and somebody and Matt brought up Rob Bell and anybody familiar with him, and I talk about Rob Bell a lot. But Rob Bell had a podcast once on uh religio essentially, and this is something that um Vervaeke will talk about, like the origin, the Greek origin of the word religion is religio, and it's related to ligaments, so like what binds you together. So they went out from us, they were not really of us. My body, what holds my arm on my body, is a number of things. The main structural stuff that holds my arm on my body, because there are bones, right? There's your humerus and your scapula and your, I don't know what all connects up here. Your what is this? Your collarbone. But the ligaments, there's all these different ligaments and tendons that hold those bones together, and then layered on top of that are is cartilage and muscles and skin and sinew and all the sinew. But like the ligaments are what hold this together. Right. Latin, my bad. See, like it doesn't matter to me. This is like Latin, Greek, whatever. It's all the same thing. Um, but thank you for the correction. I appreciate it. I need people to help me with my accuracy. Um, so that's what holds your arm on. If you didn't have the religion to hold your arm would go out from you because it's not of you. There's no more religion. When religion disappears, your arm falls off. Now you could say like this is the problem with all the beliefism that we're talking about, is just like I can't practice religion because I don't believe it. Michael Polanyi, doubt and belief are ultimately equivalent. Doubt relies on a subterranean set of tacit, unconscious, unaware, unarticulable belief in something else. When you say, I no longer believe the Christian propositions, you have a certain creedal narrative understanding of that. Coin flip. You have an objectivist coin flip 50-50, which is not radical faith, which is not childlike faith. Everything is faith. You are believing in a certain kind of narrative, confessional, creedal faith of what Christianity is, of what you've been told Christianity is, and you say, I don't believe in that. But because you don't believe in that, what that essentially is apophatic belief. I don't believe in that. It's negative belief. I believe in something else. I don't know what that is. It's not that. I know it's not that. Great. This is where Peter Rollins will talk about like atheists. A lot of people who deconstruct and are atheists or new atheists who disregard Christianity, it's because the narrative that they've been told, the creed that they've been told, the confessions that they've been told about what God is, and if you don't believe this, then you're not a Christian, sucks. The kind of God that is like, what? How do new atheists characterize it? The vindictive sky daddy? This like there's no. This is like when Joe Rogan talks about Christianity or faith, or when people Rogan has started to talk positively about faith, I think because of like the Weinsteins and Jordan Peterson. But like we need to start being able to have a more meaningful conversation about religion that is not completely untethered from the historic institutions and religions of the past, because you can't. You c- this is why, again, everything is relative, but it's not arbitrary. So like religion that binds us and what that has historically manifested as through, like, think about it evolutionarily. The evolved religions and traditions that are, I would, Vervaeke talks about this well, that are simultaneously emergent and emanating. You cannot just completely untether modern religion from that. but also like you have to deal with this confessional creedal component, which is just like a lot of people don't believe your narrative, your dumb stuff, and we all need to become like little children to inherit the earth. Um, yes, ligament is bone to bone, tendon is muscle to bone. That's yes, that is a that is like a scientific fact. But the spiritual reality underneath that is they hold things together. The symbolic reality. Um, so now my question is, so this is the realization, and I'm going to put the link out there if you want to talk. I had always thought of they went out from us because they were not of us in very like election Calvinist, like, well, they're not elect frames, or like they're not saved, or they're not whatever. I think what this verse says more simply, like on a very simple childlike faith thing, is like your arm fell off. I think that's what it's saying. It's just like there was no religion anymore. There was no religion holding them together. And I think the problem with a lot of modern confessionalist religions is even though people are there together, what they think is holding them together is actually an idol. And all it would take is like a few things to happen for that idol to collapse and for all of them to just be like, "Oh, we're in individualistic nihilism." Like put somebody from this little corner, any of these weirdos in this little corner, me, Sam, whatever. That's why like what happened in our church. That's why like in my bad church experience, they didn't want me there because like I'm gonna throw wrenches into your theoretically confessionalist idolatry. You think that your credo is your religio and it's not. And so like when people leave that, like who's being faithful? What's going on there? This is like the canonization of heretics that you need people that don't see everything, that don't have the groupthink of your confession to point out your blind spots. Otherwise you won't be able to see that. You won't be able to at all. And so then I have this question as I'm dealing with air with like Estuary and my local group. I'm just like, what's holding us together? Is it ideas? Is it the history of how Estuary has evolved from Jordan Peterson and Paul Vanderklay and Peugeot? How much of that kind of knowledge and lingo do people in my local estuary need to have to be able to participate in this? When does it become a new thing? When is my estuary no longer connected to the other body, the bigger body of like Estuary and Paul Vanderklay and Jordan Peterson, whatever that is? Like, what is this body? What is the little corner? I don't know. I'm thinking about all of those things. What are the ties that bind? Yeah, absolutely. So, I would love your guys' thoughts. I'm gonna put the link out there. Um, oh, one other thing that I was in my word studies that I found, TLC isn't a body. Okay, interesting. I would probably disagree with that, Father. So let me know why. And I'm gonna go through some of these comments. Did you Cosmos is just like adornment. One way that you could think about the cosmos is it's God's adornment. Like it's the clothes that we put on the invisible body. It's like God is the invisible man and the cosmos is his adornment or something. I don't know. It's just I found like the idea of adornment being a super interesting idea. All right, let's go back here. Armless is how British people say safe. So McMo, I know you're like I'm assuming into rap and hip hop and stuff, and you make your own music. I have a buddy who has like super broadened my musical taste throughout my life, and I very much Jonathan, what up? And I very much credit him for my musical salvation because I used to, and I still love. I used like when I was in high school.
Hello.
What up, boy? It was a
Sorry,
lot
I've
of.
got. I'm trying to close the streams. I have like 3 audios going at once. What up?
Oh, sweet. Is my audio good? I forgot to even put my
Yeah,
head.
no, it sounds good.
Um, so when I was younger, I listened to a lot of NSYNC. I know like No Strings Attached, the whole album by heart. Uh,
I'm not
but
familiar.
like, and now like all my favorite music is I don't know. Some good music stuck with me. Rage Against the Machine, I've always loved that. Radiohead, all this stuff. But he exposed me to this British rapper. what was it? And there's all this British slang that's so fascinating. This is like the armless thing made me think of, which he always had this song about birds, and he talks about like birds is their word for the B word, the Brits, and it was the lyric was always like you're fit, but don't you know it? That was like his little hook. I can't remember what the song was. Anyway, Jonathan, I'm going to read comments. What up?
Chilean, what up? What up? I don't know. I'm here. It's
Sweet,
my
dude.
first time doing a live stream.
That's
Yeah.
great. I've been wanting to talk to you anyhow, so this is cool because
I don't want to like derail your stream though. You know, like I'm keen to talk about the things you're talking about. If you know, I'm not trying to be like, this is a rando interview now.
no, totally. No, I wouldn't want to do that here, and also, I think Chad has plans to do that with you as
hmm
well, right? And Chad's doing that. I may be involved in some of those. I don't know. We'll see. I do this because this works for me.
I love
Um,
these streams, man. I love how you just like spill your mind and like throw all the things into the soup bowl, and then it's like, and then something bubbles up, and it's like, wow.
it's very, yeah, it's very chaos. It's very, that's my, that is my mind. It's very unstructured in
Yeah.
general. It's just like, I was talking to, who was I talking to recently? Oh, a buddy. Was it Cal? It was maybe Kalia, or it was maybe a local friend. But I think it's very true. Like, I think, well, this is related. So this is related. Cool. I I've been learning from this local buddy stuff about my Myers Briggs. So I don't want to talk too much about my wife, but I basically learned she's like the opposite of me in Myers Briggs, and we've been together like a long time, over 20 years. Most significant, most important person in my life. Love her to death. I've just learned it's just so crazy. Like it's connected to what I was saying earlier. People are infinite, right? Knowledge is infinite. Anything is infinite. And so anything that is,
Mm-hmm.
which has, that's incarnational theology basically. But as much as I've known her and know her, and I know her better than anyone else,
Mm-hmm.
it's just like I've had this revelation in the last year that's just like the way that we process information is completely opposite.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've
And
heard you
like,
talk about her a couple times, like how she's not really interested in this type of
oh yeah, she doesn't
conversation and
care
stuff.
about any of this.
Mm-hmm.
Like this would be like waterboarding to make
Mm-hmm.
her listen to this. It would be terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's what's so funny is like I'll say that sometimes to her jokingly. I'm like, there are some people that
Yeah,
appreciate like
yeah, yeah. It's
what
like
I
that
have
with my
to say.
dad. My dad is like, this is a waste of time. I'm like, there are many people who find this extremely fulfilling. Yeah, but
Yeah, yeah. It's just funny how people are different. And so she's like it's just I don't know. It's so great because in love you have to learn how to not insist on your own way, not be annoyed with people that are different than you, not be frustrated with someone that you're in a relationship with that you because I have such high expectations of the closer you are to me that they are not doing what you want them to do. Because like I think very much like an impressionist painter paints. Like I'm very big picture, 30,000-foot view. I don't really care about the detail. I don't really care about accuracy, which to some people is crazy because they're just like,
yeah.
what then why talk?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why are you saying words if you don't care about being accurate? Like to them, they're
Mm-hmm.
just like, that's insane then.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's if my wife
Yeah.
said this to me the other day. She's just like, if you don't care about the words that I'm saying in particular, then then how can you be frustrated that I'm not understanding you? And I'm just like, but the way that I'm wired, I'm just like, if you focus on the particulars of my words because of the way that I am, you'll never understand me because I use the wrong words all the time.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I say like you can be right and be wrong or be wrong and be right. Or I've said to my wife like if you use the words if you try to use the words that I've said against me and like hold them against me as some sort of law, well you're fundamentally operating as an objectivist and not a personalist.
Mm-hmm.
I am the meaning maker of my words.
Yeah. 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 I'm reminded of like you were talking about like you know, creeds and stuff, and like words that like this is what this means and you must agree. And like I'm also reminded of I think it was Barfield, right? He talks about vertical speech, and like how it's not like the words are not like the message. They're just like the way that the message comes through or something. So like, and
Yeah,
I don't mean to be that the particular words are of no meaning, but it's like, if we take them only at their like definitional meaning,
yes,
then it's like we're not actually hearing what is being conveyed. It's like that's not the point of the words. And I'm
totally.
also, and it makes me think about text as well. Like I think we're very bewitched by text, and to the point where you were talking about. I think this is connected to as well what you were saying about the childlikeness, where it's like I think that's connected with this difference between the vertical word speaking and horizontal, like just particular definitional words or something, where um man, there's so many things. The problem with this is that sometimes it's too much to keep track of. But
Totally.
yeah, but
I'm tracking you. I'm totally
for
tracking you
that
because
for
it's
that.
like everything is an icon. Everything is infinitely finite.
Hmm.
It really is. Like that's what it means for everything to be iconic. So even words and definitions are icons. They
Hmm.
have a word has a religio, has a mystical religio, but it also
Hmm.
has the credo, which is the definition. But the problem is if you hold on to the definition too tightly, you'll lose the word. This is where I don't know if you've heard this, but I call it despirited breath. So what it makes me think
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah. This is exactly what. Yeah.
what it makes me think of is, and I quote this all the time, but Socrates' lament of the written word. And this is
Yes.
connected to memory. It's what I was saying earlier. He said essentially, like writing, the medium is the message. If we start interpreting everything through text and through writing, he said, we will forget.
Yes.
And memory is the purveyor of reason. So you connect writing with, it's not, I would say it's not arbitrary that objectivism and rationalism has become the dominant way that everybody thinks that they understand the world. And I think that's because we are in the medium of the written world. But I
Yeah.
also don't think that it's arbitrary
Yeah. I think.
that this quickening has come through Jordan Peterson in long form conversation. This isn't writing.
Yeah. 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 Or the connection to Jordan Peterson, like you see, like how did you like? Are you just speaking about like the phenomena of long form in general? Or, like I'm
Yeah.
curious about the exact connection why you
Yeah,
use Jordan
I'm
Peterson.
saying long form in general because like Jordan Peterson had like what exactly is going on in Jordan Peterson? Because he is kind of like as far as the little corner goes, like he's at the top of the pyramid.
Yeah.
Um, and but what has happened underneath him? But it's also like with Rogan. It's
Yeah.
the reason Rogan is uncancelable is because he has weeks, months, maybe of long form conversations.
Hmm.
People
Oh, I see what you're saying.
to
I think
some
I
degree,
yeah.
people know him
Hmm.
in a way that isn't just like, and it's
They
almost like
don't
the
take his
opposite
words and
of
yeah,
clickbait.
they. Sorry.
No, it's almost like the opposite of like a clickbait. Like I'm gonna just take this section of this tweet. This is why Twitter sucks.
Hmm.
But it's like maybe changing. It's like you want to just take this section of a tweet and then like all that leads us to schism and fighting. Just that small written word.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So much. I mean, yeah. Um, yeah, and it's connected, I think, to what you were saying about I don't know, man. There's so much. It's hard to like keep track. I just completely fall off the
Well,
the
I'm
train.
throwing out a lot.
Yeah. Um,
Um,
yeah, I mean, this is like super salient to me. This whole difference, like particularly the whole idea of the spirit-filled words and stuff.
yeah,
You know,
despirited
c-
breath maybe is where
yeah,
you were like lighten up. Is
yeah, yeah,
connected to that.
yeah. Because I'm not sure how much you've looked at the stuff on my channel, but like I
No.
have a particular interest in human interaction and communication and like the ways that we use language and social dynamics and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
particularly nonverbal communication. You're talking about the medium is the message,
Yeah.
and it's like you know if the like I think that the distinguishing factor between the text and um the non-text, I suppose. Like, do you think there can be spirit-filled text? Like what's up with that? Because like I believe that there's a thing where
Yeah.
where I don't know though, because I think it might just be like iconic in the sense where it's like it creates this medium where you can like imagine onto or something, and
Yeah,
like it can be good enough where you can actually link up to the
yeah,
person and stuff. But I don't think that it's like I don't know. I think the text is like it's like a step or something.
yeah. Well,
I'm
I
not
mean, I
sure.
kind of have like a hierarchy of communication, but because of this, the thing that I'm always talking about with like the crystal logic of identity and non-identity is that even though like I'll maybe criticize something, there's always life and death. So like I'll say this thing is bad, but there's always good in it. So like
Hmm.
text is maybe so within my hierarchy of communication, like text, written text, I would put as the worst.
Hmm.
And then I would step up to like a voice memo or something because
Yeah.
that's something I've been using a lot in the little corner.
Hmm.
Like we'll talk about the Voxer group or Discord. We always had these. You could have voice chats,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
better
I
than
mean,
that
even the
is video.
yeah.
Like this is better than that
Hmm.
because there's more of the fullness of the person communicated through this medium.
Hmm.
But then better than that is in real life because there's all these intangible things that you could never enumerate that's happening in real life
Hmm.
that doesn't happen in this medium,
Yeah.
you know? And then a relationship in real life, in a committed relationship like your family with your wife is like even more so because you have so much time together and with each other and you see
Hmm.
so many different facets of each other. It's like you can't
Yeah, and like the
fake
medium,
that.
the medium in that case is like uh I also think there's something important about the temporality of it, where it's like the medium is constant in person or something, and it's like the when we're in text, like there's no like I think the actual moving nature of speech, like even on a phone call, like there's something about the
Mhm.
rhythm of it
Yeah,
that like
totally.
the silence is actually of supreme significance or something,
No,
and
absolutely.
like when we text each other, it's like we have these silences in between messages that are, I don't know, I think it's largely because of my own personal obsession with this phenomena, because very curious about like the heights of this, as you were saying, as we move towards committed relationships, you know then we're moving up, and I think that like the heights of that communion in person, like uh I don't know, it you know suffice to say, oh man, I completely lost my train of thought because I don't want to go into my whole story, um
Yeah. Well, dude, it'll be really cool to hear you talk about that someday, but one of the things that you said when you were talking about, let me see if I can remember it.
rubbing off.
Um, no, I lost it. Anthony, what up?
What's up,
Can
Luke?
you talk?
Hey, Jonathan.
Hey,
Okay,
Luke.
sweet.
Maybe I should try and remember it. It's uh um when we
You said something that prompted me
yeah,
to.
I don't know,
Um,
man. I need to get better at this. When like super salient things hit me, I need to get better at like not letting them knock me out.
oh, this is it, dude. This is it because this requires practice. So, like Paul had this. I see Paul's here. Chris Williamson had this the other day, and it's very much a riff on the Jordan Peterson thing of like comparing yourself to someone else is ridiculous. Like you should only compare yourself to who you were yesterday, and maybe even then it's troublesome because he said like to think like I'm starting podcasts, and all of a sudden like I'm comparing myself to Joe Rogan. Well, good luck. Like he's been really good at this, but one really good way to think about that is is practice and the medium because this makes me think of morphic fields, like Rupert Sheldrake's theories of morphic fields. So like one facet of that is memory, really. So like he used the illustration of um, when you learn a new habit, because a morphic field is really like a memory or a habit that exists in a field outside of space and time. Like that's what a morphic field is. And
Sure.
so he like will use the illustration of a crystal, and I know this from being a chemist, that when a crystal forms for the first time, when you bring a novel crystal into formation, like you titrate and do this chemical reaction where like some new molecule and crystal is formed, it really resists formation. Like you'll
Mhm.
have to add a bunch of heat or really cool it down. If it's endothermic or exothermic, whatever, these are all terms that I'm just showing that I'm smart. And then right? And it'll really resist formation. But once you have the memory of
Hmm.
that formation, it becomes easier and easier and easier. And there's like the 4 minute mile, right? We thought that was impossible. We were like, no human being will ever do that. And then all of a sudden, somebody did it. They
Hmm.
broke that. They formed that crystal. There was that memory, and then all of a sudden, just people started doing it like lightning.
Yeah.
This kind of talking. So there's a few threads I want to connect. This kind of talking, like number one, extemporaneous talking. Like Paul said this the other day. I'm extroverted. I'm 99th, 96th percentile or something, right? And I'm very high in openness. Like my Myers-Briggs, somebody was asking about it. Like I'm something like extroverted intuition is like my superpower. It's where I flow state.
Hmm.
Like I'm just this is what I do. And
Hmm.
so like this isn't hard for me. This is how this is what's going on inside my head all the time, except when my wife is saying, "Can you do something that's not that, please, and help our
Can
family?"
you rake the leaves?
And so like this so like there's natural giftedness, which also has a curse. Like I'm naturally gifted at this, whatever this is.
Hmm.
So like to think and I do it a lot and I've been doing it in this little corner a fair amount. And so like to some degree it's like for you to say like I need to get better at this and learn how to just riff and keep
Hmm.
things in my thought and also listen to people, like it's hard, man.
I
It
appreciate
requires a
it.
lot of practice.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I think that helped me remind, it helped me quiet my mind so that I could remember what I was going to say, which was that, you know, my obsession with all this, like the heights of that, has also made like the textual stuff really messes with me, and I think,
Mm,
and I also kind of rave about it, as some people would hear, and but I would like to be clear that like I don't think that it's totally useless. I just think we have to like be aware of what it is. It's like I
totally.
feel like we're bewitched by it, um, to the point where we like take it without any thought or something, and
That's
um,
because we're these objectivist rationalists
yeah,
because of the writing.
yeah,
Like the writing is influencing us that medium is influencing us so much more than we that I think that's why we have this definitional thing. It's
hmm
why we're so obsessed with
yeah.
creedalism,
It very strongly
propositionalism.
brings to mind the closed circle of the serpent.
Totally.
Yeah.
Anthony, Paul, what
Hey,
up?
Paul.
Morning. I don't have any thoughts. I don't think. I think.
Oh,
I'm
you're
sorry.
just
Doing my
hanging out.
I
chores.
was just thinking. I was gonna poke you on the First John passage and get more of your thoughts on that one.
Dude, let's do it. That's so strengths and weaknesses. I miss that from evangelicalism in my like biblicist, more fundy-ish traditions that I was in. I would say, like, what is a fundamentalist? I think what I was in. uh, but there's a lot of good things about it. Like I love I love nerdy Bible study. Like I really really love it. I don't really do it that much anymore.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, let's go.
Yeah, I mean,
I
I
love
guess
it.
that passage in the context, since we're speaking of context, I mean, there's that. It begins with the Antichrist, right?
Yes, totally.
Which I
Yep.
don't know if you really, and it comes back around to the Antichrist, right?
Hmm.
The discussion about those who went out from us.
Oh, yeah, I had
Um,
thoughts about that too.
yeah, so I guess, did you think through that? Yeah, riff on that.
So a little bit. I mean, I was just I definitely want Jonathan. I want to hear your thoughts, but of course, like the MacArthur Bible study method. I was schooled in all this stuff. You got to like read the context. That's a great like MacArthur said that once. One of the most beneficial things in my life is that's the MacArthur study method, where he's just like, you should take a book of the Bible and you should just like read it over and over and over for like a month, like the whole thing, and then you can go through and like break it apart. John Piper used to do this stuff all the time at Bethlehem, where he would have classes on I forget what it's, but like biblical
He called it arcane, didn't he?
arcing, yeah,
Yeah.
marking and stuff. Where like put squares around things, circles around things, connect things with arrows, different color coordination. So I have like this old Bible. I should go find it. Where I did that with First Corinthians. This is why First Corinthians is like probably my favorite book of the Bible, because I think I obsessed over it for like half a year,
Mm.
and it's so fascinating. So like yeah, so I read First John 2. up into that verse, and yes, that's very true. So it's about, I mean, the whole context is about like good fruit and obedience, and if you, like, if you love God, you're gonna obey Him, and if you don't, to say that you love God and you don't obey Him is ridiculous.
That reminds me of
Yeah.
the guy who wrote Critique of Pure Reason,
Who wrote what?
Schindler, D.C. Schindler.
Oh, oh
He's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
talking about how obedience and like attraction and stuff, and like how it obedience is like it comes forth like it's a call of love. Like it's not not an imposition. It's like the obedient person is one who is moved by the call,
Yeah,
rather than somebody who is like uh submitting to rules,
dude, totally. That's that George McDonald quote that from Sherry mentioned in some, I don't know, live or conversation earlier on Grail Country, but George McDonald, where under the umbrella of love, will and obedience are. I mean, I'm changing it.
Yeah,
Are
yeah, yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah. I
They're
remember
one
talking
thing.
about that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Another thing that came to mind with the you're talking about like the ligaments and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I remember you said, "What is it that like holds the body together?" And the first thing that instantly came to mind is love. It's
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know. I didn't really think the thought any more than that, but I don't know. It's like the idea that love holds everything together. So like when when something goes out from us, the other thing that came to mind is I don't know who that quote was. I missed that when you said that, but it sounds a little bit tribal to me. I'm not gonna lie. Like when people say go out from us, like
Mm-hmm.
obviously there is an us, right? It's like we're in a group, but something about the tribal aspect just I don't know if it bugs me or something. Like as you can see, I have a canonized heretic on my.
Is love like a higher? Does it bind at a higher level than communion?
Oh man, that's a
I
trippy
think love and
question. That's
communion are
like
kind of like the same thing in a way, right?
that's messing with my categories. Yeah. Um.
Right, because
Messing with my
to go
definitions.
out is to be outside of communion in this
Yeah,
context, right? Like the apostles
yeah.
talking about this, and Paul talking, right? This is to be in communion, but then
But what is
it's
communion? It's like to be in communion. Does that mean I have to like you know do exactly what the us tells me to do?
Okay.
It's like
no. I think
Let's
it's
make it really practical, less abstract.
yeah.
Prodigal son and the father. The us is the family,
mhm,
and I would say he went out from us
Hmm.
because he was not of us. But I think love, the love of the father, always is always there. It's always waiting. It is the hospitable thing where he's just like, come
mhm,
back, and even running to meet you. And so like there is a, in a way, and this is very like coincidence of opposites or identity of identity and non-identity. There is a, and this is like a Rollins thing. There is not a body, but there is, because the Father's love is still like it's just here.
mhm.
It's just
Yeah,
waiting.
like my mind goes to this idea of like the large us or something. It's like uh I don't know. Like, can you tell me more about the context of that quote? Like,
Which one?
when they went out from us because
Oh,
not one of us. Like, um, I should have I should have paid more attention when you were
should I
talking about that.
go? I'm gonna
I
here.
got it up if you
This
want
will
to.
get crazy. Yeah, look at it. I'm gonna go actually get a Bible. I'm gonna get a
Oh, yeah, do
physical Bible
that.
and open it up.
But even in
How's it
that,
going, Paul?
even in
Oh,
the
go ahead.
prodigal
Yeah.
story, there's communion at the end, right? I mean, it's the meal that is shared with the son that went off,
Mhm.
right? The
Well,
father,
it's and it's but his father wanted the older brother at the table. That's the tension in the story.
right?
right.
Yeah, I mean, like people. I feel like there's like going out. Yeah, I don't know. I'll let you. I should hear more about this before I like try and speak about it.
I'm waiting to hear what version of the Bible Luke owns.
I have a lot of them. Most of them, though, this is from most of them are this.
I knew it was going to be an ESV.
The approved Calvinist version.
Most of them are ESV. My
If you need, I got the.
Oh, you got the
David Bentley Hart one.
DV8.
David Bentley Hart.
We can read
I've been
that.
thinking
What,
I
you want
could
to
get
read
one.
it from that?
Well, I don't know. I don't know how good this will be. I actually find
it'll
it.
be
I
good.
like it, but it's better that if you know the Greek to read this, because I think he shows some of it, and if you know the Greek, you kind of see it. But I don't know how it feels like if you don't really know the underlying Greek.
Let's compare them. So this has become a almond tree Jacob Bible study.
Yeah.
New Testament Bible study. Where do you want to? What was the question? Do we want to just read the whole chapter?
I'm all for this. We just got to be careful not to get bewitched by the words, you know.
Oh man,
Yeah.
Holy cow! All right, I'll start reading here, and then I mean, if you want to like follow along in that, and then if there's any like interesting translation differences, like try to remember them. All right. So, my little children, I'm writing you these things so that you may not sin. But if anyone does sin, we have an advocate with the Father, Jesus Christ the righteous. He is the propitiation, good job, ESV, for our sins, and not for ours only, but also for the sins of the whole world.
Cosmos.
And by this we know that we have come to know him, if we keep his commandments. Whoever says, I know him, but does not keep his commandments is a liar, and the truth is not in him. But whoever keeps his word, in him we truly, the love of God is perfected. By this we may be sure that we are in him. Whoever says he abides in him ought to walk in the same way in which he walked.
Can I pause here real quick and just, Paul, you talked about Stephen Pinker's definition of religion as something like obeying commands. There's obedience right here, right?
Yeah,
obviously, we won't talk about love, but.
Well, that's true. That's part of it. But
yeah.
It's that whole dynamic of laws that Vervaeke talks about too, that you can't put everything down into laws.
Well, the Credo, because like you will no longer treat the Credo with iconic thinking, as I would say, as an icon. It becomes a static definitional thing, and then it's dead. It's a despirited
It becomes
word.
a closed circle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's law versus spirit, I think, which is something Wayne talks about all the time in here. So, verse 7, continuing. Behold, I am writing to you no new commandment, but an old commandment that you had from the beginning. Just wait, I have someone else wanting to come in here. Chadrick, you can't interrupt the Bible or you're even more of a heretic. He's got a Bible!
Chad, bring in the Bible.
Bring in the word.
So
we're in verse 7b right now. 1 John 2.
Maybe I should grab my Bible.
Toward the end of the Bible. It's right. 1st, 2nd, 3rd John.
Yep, got it.
Okay. So the old commandment is the word that you have heard. At the same time, it is a new commandment that I'm writing to you. Wait, it's an old and a new commandment? Who talks in like these duplicitous ways all the time? At the same time, it is a new commandment that I am writing to you, which is true in him and in you, because the darkness is passing away and the true light is already shining. Whoever says he is the light and hates his brother is still in darkness. Whoever loves his brother abides in the light, and in him there is no cause for stumbling. But whoever hates his brother is in the darkness and walks in the darkness and does not know where he is going because the darkness has blinded his eyes. I am writing to you, little children, because your sins are forgiven for his name's sake. I am writing to you, fathers, because you know him who is from the beginning. I am writing to you, young men, because you have overcome the evil one. I write to you, children, because you know the Father. I write to you, fathers, because you know him who is from the beginning. I write to you, young men, because you are strong, and the word of God abides in you, and you have overcome the evil one. Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the desires of the flesh and the desires of the eyes and the pride in possessions, is not from the Father, but is from the world. And the world is passing away, along with its desires. But whoever does the will of God abides forever. Children, it is the last hour. As you have heard that Antichrist is coming, so now many Antichrists have come. Therefore we know that this is the last hour. They went out from us because they were not of us. For if they had been of us, they would have continued with us. But they went out, that it might become plain that they are not of us. But you have been anointed by the Holy One, and you all have knowledge. I write to you not because you do not know the truth, but because you know it, and because no lie is of the truth. Who is a liar but he that denies that Jesus is the Christ? This is the Antichrist, he who denies the Father and the Son. No one who denies the Son has the Father. Whoever confesses the Son has the Father also. Let what you have heard from the beginning abide in you. If you have heard from the beginning, abide in you. What am I saying? Let what you have heard from the beginning abide in you. If what you have heard from the beginning abides in you, then you too will abide in the Son and the Father. And this is the promise that he made to us, eternal life. I write these things to you about those who are trying to deceive you, but the anointing that you received from him abides in you, and you have no need that anyone should teach you. But as his anointing teaches you about everything, and is true and is no lie, just as it has taught you, abide in him. And now, little children, abide in him, so that when he appears, we may have confidence and not shrink from him in shame at his coming. If you know that he is righteous, you may be sure that everyone who practices righteousness has been born of him. Okay, differences, thoughts.
I
There's
think
really no real differences here, other than he uses the word cosmos instead of world.
Yeah.
Really?
Really? That's the only one?
Yeah, really significantly. I mean,
That
first John is pretty
ESV
straightforward.
boy, those Calvinists.
I bet he uses, instead of propitiation, I bet he says sin offering.
No, he says atonement.
Or atone. Oh, huh.
you
Luke
said,
likes his helmet.
but mine says
I
no.
like that word.
What version do you have, Chad?
Revised Standard Version
Yeah.
from
Reading the old wood.
from like 1950 something.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, thoughts. What do we see? Comments. Verse 18 is harder to interpret. It says,
Question.
Chad is his hand raised.
Do not love the world or the things of the world. If anyone loves the world, loves for the Father is not in him. So like I was just talking about this yesterday.
yeah.
Like loving, like I really love the life that I've had, and I like. Does that make it's hard? It's hard to talk about because like I think it would be terrible to say, well, the life that I have is the one that I should not love. I don't know, man. It's a weird thing because it is beautiful. Like if I'm really honest about it, I'm going to miss this place. Like there's that one song by Collective Soul where it talks about they standing on the edge, and it's the world we love, and like I don't know what I'm saying. I'm probably rambling.
No, I definitely hear you. It's like the problem between like the ultimately transcendent and the immanent. I think it comes to mind for me. It's like this idea that like it's like maybe it means like I don't know. I have this quote. I was reminded of there's a quote in Revelation, and it says, "And they have conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, for they love not their lives even unto death." I feel like that was kind of relevant, but at the same time, like that vibe, like I think that's I like that. Except at the same time, I feel what you're saying, Chad, where it's like sorry, the video just started playing. It's like, you know, there is a place for like I don't know, to love. Isn't that like why we're here, to love and to get better at loving in some sense, and but I don't know. It's a weird dichotomy between like I think there's a way in which we should love the world and love creation and like the beauty of it and stuff, but there's also a way where we should not like take it definitionally and recognize that it's iconic and to a higher transcendent thing or something like that. Is that kind of a bunch of words salad?
In a bunch of my videos, Chad, I've recently talked about the fact that when you read John, this is First John, this is the Gospel of John, but it's the same community. When you talk about the world, there's a lot of different things it means. Think about John 3:16, for God so loved the world. That sense of world is different from the sense of worldliness that here in First John they're talking about. So when you love your life, you're doing the right thing because it's a gift from God. But someone might also say, when sobriety came to town, you turned your back on the world, because in the sense of the Gospel of John, drunkenness is part of the world. So you got to be really careful about figuring out what sense of they mean by the world in John.
Yep.
But
yeah, and this is what we were saying at the beginning, about
like this verse, the desires of the flesh and the desires of the eyes and the pride of life is not from the Father, but is of the world. The word flesh is sarx. It's like it's what's passing away. It's what's dying. And so it's not saying, and this is where, like in this life, because of the incarnation, I think because of emanation and emergence, because of like its transcendence and immanence, infinite finiteness, that's what everything is. And so like what is passing away? The finite is passing away, but there's infinity in that finiteness. Yep. And so like it's saying to love the eternal things, love the heavenly things, love the things that aren't going to pass away when you die, when your body dies.
Do you think it also might be something about like this distinction between like the body though, and how like there's that whole groups of people that say like, we want to eliminate the passions and the body is evil. You think it might be some of that where it's like, no, we should love that, perhaps?
Well, I'm thinking about what was so important about the stories that we share with each other, and like, so the passions. So let's say I first meet somebody, and they're consumed by the passion of, let's say, drunkenness, and they want to be relieved of that, but they do not know how to do that themselves. So we sit together and I will share my story of my experience with the passion of drunkenness and the passions of self, and through the stories, and he could start to see something greater than the passion of drunkenness. And this is how we do this. That's why I love what we're doing here right now, and all these different conversations this little conversation that we've had over the last several years. It's so important because we see, this is greater than, like, I think you were saying the particulars or something, or not the particulars, but the finite, which is my hands touching each other right now. Now, in a year from now, I might think about this moment where I was talking about my hands touching together right now, and this great conversation that we're sharing. So that the finite is this, my hands touching, but the infinite is the story of love that we're sharing about in this little illustration. I don't know. I think it's. I wish I can't go on my phone and grab this song lyric because it'll kick me off of StreamYard. But if somebody can find the lyrics to that song, the Collective Soul song, it says a lot of it there.
I might know it.
You know
Which
it.
album?
It's the songs we stand on the. It's about the man standing on the top of the building, looking out at the world with a tear in his eyes, and he's in pain, but he also realizes it's the world that he loves.
Oh yeah, The World I Know.
Yeah, The World I Know.
That's the song. Yeah, try to think. Man, it's been a long time since I've listened to Collective Soul.
So good.
Chad, you're like me in that we just like thinking song lyrics, or that's one of the
I
that's
think in
one of the
YouTube, I
Jones
think in YouTube clips, like some people think in
or
like
that.
Grimgris thinks in like TV and movie clips, you know,
Mhm.
like some people have like songs or like, for me it's like YouTube clips, and I'm always like referencing people. Oh, that reminds me of a YouTube clip, and it's like, man, this guy watches a lot of freaking YouTube.
I walk the far and high. I walk the far and high, and I stand at the edge. So I'm there. I'm like greater than all of you. I'm looking down. I'm walking this far and high. I stand at the edge, and I look at the world below, and I realize that even though I think I'm better than you, I'm not. It's you guys that make me feel this way, this beautiful. I gotta stop talking about this damn song to make me cry like a little bitch.
Love it, Chad. I love it.
That's the infinite in there, Luke. It's like this is what our stories and poetry and sharing with each other can do. It helps you see things that you can't lay out with facts. You cannot lay out the world I love with facts. It has to be in the song.
Because and it's something you see as well. Like it's not something, as you said, you know, a while back in one of your conversations, Chad. It's like it's not when you say it well enough for me to understand it. You know, it's like you see it and you experience it, and there's also the temporality of like the song, as you were saying. When you hear a song, like somebody can't just tell you the lyrics of the song and you read the, I mean, I suppose like poetry and stuff, like that's kind of what it is, but you know, there's something about that temporal living aspect that you see and you feel the rhythm.
Yeah. Well, and to get at this first John reading, there's a song that McMulv or Matt shared with me called by this band called Epic or something. And the song is called Lower Still. And that song hits on exactly what this reading is about. It crushes me. And the guy doesn't even sing well. Stuck singing the lyrics, the whole thing just crushes you. It's so beautiful. Who is this now?
This is the Marylander.
The
Oh,
Maryland.
and welcome.
Tim!
This is one of those BOM outcasts. He's a
Oh, I
heretic.
love you, Tim.
What's up?
Dude. How are you, my beautiful friend?
I'm doing okay. Still alive somehow. Your mask is looking fresh as shit, dude.
Nice.
You're hanging on to that Religio. Hang on to it.
What's on
Yeah,
your
it's not a there's something, it's like creation and new creation, or there's all these biblical things, or it's like Christ, Adam and Christ, and like a new Adam. So there's all these things are like, are they the same or are they different? Yes. So like this creation that's fading away or passing away, I don't take these verses that's just like you should hate the world and as like the way that I would have taken it growing up, which was basically like, I mean, the story, again, it's back to stories of like narrative, right? That we layer on top of the objectivism with the coin flip. We layer this story on where it's like, oh, that's what Christianity is. So that story that I was told growing up is that this is all going to burn. Like this is just all crap that's sin and broken and going to burn. And then essentially like what's going to happen, although I don't think they would ever say it this way, is there's going to be like there's going to be like a cosmic planetary flood that just like wipes out this earth because it's total garbage. And then there'll be this new creation that comes back where like everything's fixed. You know, like this utopian thing that's going to come back and fix. I don't think that's I mean, N.T. Wright really probably helped disabuse me of that more than anyone else. It's not about, and if you read Revelation, what's interesting is like we meet Christ in the clouds, right? But then he descends to earth, and like it's a renewal of this.
Right.
Yeah.
And First John begins with like a description of the embodied Christ, right? I mean, that which we have seen and which we have touched. That's what, right?
Heard. Yep.
And I guess I don't know if this has to do with if you like in verse 23, he says, you know, if that has to do with what it for the world
Hit a little bit of
that
lag
is a
there.
problem,
Roboting.
if something like that. I just read on the world topic. I've been reading this little book on just like spiritual devotions, and it has a little. I actually just read on the world, and it says you ought not to imagine as the world as something sinful and tangible, which I thought was. And it says Saint Macaros of Egypt says that the world is a veil of darkness that surrounds the heart and shut it out from the tree of life. And I guess that was kind of helpful to me because often when we think of the world, we think of that out there, like those sinful people or things. I said, well, how can you picture the world as not something tangible and sinful? And I guess if you look at your own heart, you know what the world is. The world is those desires within that are problematic and that lead not to life but to death.
I don't know. I
You know, when Luke leaves, you guys got to talk more. Luke like fills the space.
it's that extroversion, like we
He's
don't have enough
disembodied
percentiles to
completely.
make up for.
I love that, Paul. You're the first one to speak up. It's like
I was about to say something. I was going to say that I think it's I don't know. I feel like when we talk about the world and creation and like stuff like that, I don't know. I feel maybe I'll like pretend to be Luke for a sec. It's definitional knowing. It's like, what do we mean by the world? And we already kind of went through that point, but I don't know, just maybe relinking it to that. It's like, I think there's a sense in which both sides of like loving the world and not loving the world. It just depends on what we mean by world. But
you could be wrong. You're right. You're wrong. And
yeah.
So Jonathan,
Yeah.
you mentioned that you were like, you had a little bit of a problem with the in and out kind of aspect of this passage. I don't know if we really covered that. Like those who were not of us, they went out from us.
Yeah, the reading, the fuller reading was helpful in that respect, like of contextualizing it. So, like those who went out was essentially like the heretics and stuff, right? Like those who do not keep the those who do not like. Or is it those who are not like saved, or is it like it's the people who didn't make it into the kingdom? Is kind of how I heard it, right?
Well, I don't know. There's something in particular about, I don't know if it's just any Joe Schmo. I think John is maybe talking about those who are claiming to teach in the same level as he would be.
So like, yeah,
right. It's like some like persons that try to have the authority of teaching in the church in this particular case, but then in their teaching and in their walk of life, they show themselves not to be
The
real deal.
Antichrist,
The Antichrist,
the dividers, the deceivers.
So they were, and Luke, I guess you talked about like you kind of, did I hear this right? You kind of like compare them with the almost like those who leave the super rigid confessional churches as like those who left, but they're leaving something. Their leaving is a little different from these people leaving in this passage. Seems to me, right? Like, how do you?
Well, I think part of that is like, yeah, this is where I would say it's complicated because it's really easy to do like an anachronistic reading of the text or to impose a modern worldview onto a textual worldview. And like, these are conversations I've had a lot with Yosef, is even like, for example, like works righteousness or like faith versus works, that whole debate, like that's a Protestant thing. Like, I mean, a Jew they can't even think that way.
Right.
And I would argue like Orthodox doesn't even view that way. Like that's something that evolved in a Western consciousness. And that's what this text is all about. It's about obedience.
And I would argue that anybody who has experience with actual like works versus righteousness crap, like, and transcending that, doesn't even think about that. They don't even think about that because you're just like, well, my experience shows me like that I love, like, I can feel the presence of God when I'm in works, but didn't. It's weird because like I hate words. I don't know how to use them. They're the word of communication.
But here's the thing: if we
Difficult.
we can't. But that's what we were talking about earlier. We're not going to understand you with words alone and merely definitions and the words that you use. I'm going to understand you. This has always been my advocating for personal knowing. I know you because I have a relationship with you and I've talked to you for years.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I get you. Like even when you say things, like I see through to the heart, to the religio of what you're saying. I don't get caught up in the credo.
Right.
I save the appearances. That's like what I'm talking about.
Oh,
I want to hear from Tim because I know Tim has a different perspective on a lot of this stuff, and he's going to have.
Tim's a wrench thrower. He's great.
Yeah, he's gonna. Yeah, because I think Tim will call us on our shit, which I love.
Need it.
I barely know what you guys are talking about.
Hey, Tim,
What do you mean by no?
with these guys that you kind of shared with me I don't know, a month ago or something about the person driving by the people who are starving and not doing shit about it but claiming.
Oh, you want me what we talked about on the phone?
Yeah.
So I like, just as background or context, like when I was being raised in a religious tradition, I looked at what we claim to believe either in creed or in like catechism or scripture. And I looked at the way we actually behaved. And growing up, I had a lot of questions as like, if we believe what we say we believe, why aren't we in church every single day? And like nobody could really answer that question. In fact, well, it's like, well, we have to go to the grocery store, we have to go to work, it's like we have to go home at some point and go to bed. And it's like, yeah, well, why don't we just sleep in the church? Like, if we believe what we say we believe, like, we don't need jobs, we don't need to go to grocery stores. God will provide for us. Not even the beasts of the field or the birds of the air worry about where their meal is going to come from. And so these questions really never got answered to a level of like, of effectiveness to me. And so I adopted a view that like, for this all to make sense to me, I believe that people don't really believe in much of anything, truly. They say they do, but they really don't. Like, I believe that the light will turn on when I flip the light switch. Like, I believe it's going to happen, so much so that I flip the light switch without even checking the breaker, without calling Pepco, without doing any of that, right? I just flip the switch because I believe that the lights are going to turn on. But like, if the Christian believes that we're all children of God, how could they possibly step over a homeless person? How could they walk past a homeless person without asking if they need any help? Why not bring that homeless person into their home and feed and bathe them and cut their hair and stuff? Well, sorry, I have my own life to live. No, you don't. It's not your life, right? The scripture is very clear about that, right? So it's like, do you actually believe what you say you believe? And outside my apartment one day, a woman, this is not a busy intersection, like by any, it's just a small suburban 4-way, and she's standing in the median of an intersection with a giant sign that says, "Repent, Jesus saves," on a Tuesday afternoon. You know what I mean? Like, it strikes me that woman believes what she says she believes. And all the Christians in their cars driving past to go pick up their Christmas trees or take their dog to the groomer or even go to church to give their 10%, right? Like, that woman believes way more than any of those people because she's actually she's behaving in a way that's congruent with what she says she believes.
Dude, that's like,
That's true.
what you're saying really reminds me of my boy Jason, who, I don't know, it's just like he truly is one of the sweetest, coolest people I know, because he'll talk about that with like radical Pentecostals or something. He said like the people that are going out to Walmart and praying for and trying to perform like miracles of healing. He's like those those are the believers. like like those are the people that are like putting the money where their mouth is. And there's some truth. There's a lot of truth to that, man. Totally with you.
And then my flip on this is thinking it's easy to see that from the outside and have this kind of judgment about or perception about what it is that we think that this other person is believing. But I would also say maybe the person that's going to the dog groomer and on church on a Sunday and giving their 10% are believing in as much as they possibly can at that time. And then it's kind of like this thing that Luke was talking about yesterday about how, or whatever day it was, about even if given our position, even God wouldn't change what he wouldn't do things differently than what we're doing, right? So it's kind of like we're working with what we have, and so the humility is, I think, trying to grow in these different areas, and then partly the definition that you're giving is none of us could ever be real Christians, even if we were given eternity to live awake and open and have all the resources to give away everything all the time. We just couldn't do it because it's impossible. So given the definition that you're giving, it is impossible to be a Christian. But given the definition that I'm trying to lay out, is everyone is, well, let's say even the person that doesn't go to church and they're just doing the dog groomer thing. They just take the dog to the groomer and then they go on the job. They can only see what they can see and do what they can do in that moment. And that's where we have all, we're not Legos we're not Legos, man. It's really hard to lay this out. Like,
No, I understood what you told me on the phone. And I was actually very struck by just the whole experience, because, I had shared something deeply personal to me that I knew you probably wouldn't agree with. And I could tell on the phone that you vehemently disagreed with me, but you never were like angry or rude. You never yelled at me. You just said, well, what if you thought about it this way? Or this is the way that I think about it. And I listened to you just as you listened to me. And, your words did soften my heart a bit. But the thing that struck me the most was the love that I was able to experience in that moment of that conversation, of like, even though this guy completely disagrees with what I'm saying and could probably, take me to lunch on like these concepts, he's still treating me as a friend or as a brother, to like open up more space for it. I don't know.
So Tim, so you were just saying you don't know most of what we're talking about, and I know from talking to you privately and other times, you intermittently follow the little corner, and I don't know what degree and how intensely you follow it all and whatever. So like, why are you here? Like, why are you here right now?
I'm here right now to see my friend Luke and my friend Chad.
So I mean, so like that's right, exactly. And I mean, and that's like whatever that is what we're talking about. And everything else doesn't matter.
Are you talking about the attractive force that made me click on the button to be here?
Yeah, what I'm talking about is like you're here because of what I would call religio. It's what's making you be here. If you didn't have the religio to be here, you wouldn't be here.
well, and at the end of that conversation, what I remember telling you is, I don't care whether you believe or not. What I care is like, you're my homie, and that you're like, that I can just talk with you. And I'm not looking to try and capture people are saved people. It's like it's the most ridiculous and absurd thing to think that you could save somebody. How am I going to save you? I can't even save me. Like I can barely even do my damn dishes. Like, you know what I mean? So that's what my favorite part of talking with you and being able to be your friend is. Like, I don't give a shit, man. Like if you said this is all bullshit and there is no whatever, it's like great, wonderful. What does that have to do with you and I, man?
That is something I would say.
Yeah, and that's, to me, that's a little bit of the magic of this little corner. I think this little corner is a good example of it's a pushback on the inversion of Credo and Religio, because what we really matter about, what we care about here are the people, are the relationships.
Very
We don't give a shit about say everything's wrong. I don't care. Like, that's not what's important to me. I'm done with that idolatry.
You look so nice, Tim. I was like, that's why I couldn't. Well, first of all, my screen is really small. And I couldn't recognize you, but looking sharp.
So
man.
here,
I look much better in low resolution.
but where is, maybe Paul knows this. Where has Mark Lefebvre gone? Where is he?
I don't know. He's over by Father Eric most of the time.
Is he more? But like,
He's
I haven't
still in
seen
there.
I haven't seen him around forever, because what that makes me think of is like, it's the whole they went out from us because they were not really of us. The people that have come and gone in the corner, you know, like why and what are the reasons with that? Like, what is keeping the people here that are here, and why do certain people leave? Like, I haven't seen Mark around forever. I mean, I don't know why. Like, I've never had a deeply personal connection with Mark, but like that's the first time I remember interacting with you. Is like, I was renovating some bathroom and you were in there in some Discord, you know, voice chat with Mark and Manuel, and it was a chaotic mess of just like,
It's magic.
That seems right. You know, it seems like it's the religio and the love and the magic. You know, that's what's keeping people here. You know, it's not like it's not about, you know, like everyone's curious and exploring and stuff. They're not like I don't know. I don't want to talk shit about the Credo folk for all my love of them. You know,
Well, there is churn and there's a lot of elements to that churn. But you're right, Luke, in that I think part of what has made this, whatever the heck it is, special has been the fact that it's the even the little bits of personal relationships we have with one another. That's what makes this sticky, because Luke, you're often live streaming at this hour. This is about the time in California time where my wife's just left for work. It's time to empty the dishwasher. I've got to make breakfast, got to take care of the dog. And this is time that I usually listen to something. You want to say hi? You want to say hi? Yeah, you love me. You love me so much. I shouldn't let her up here. But this is a time when I would listen to an audiobook or YouTube. But I open up YouTube, an algorithm has learned I can listen to all of these different things that I make video commentaries on, but Luke is on. And, Luke is going to bring some other people. And for me, so then I'm going to make new friends, and Chad's going to jump on, and Father Eric's going to be in the chat. And so this is why I'm here, because as interesting as everybody's little thinky-talky ideas are, it's the source of the thinky-talky that is bigger than the thinky-talky.
Well, I'm also reminded of, the consummation, which is that, you see this corner moving in a very Christological direction towards this embodied in the world communion, and that is calling from the atemporal future, however you want to say it. It's like it's calling us to embody and love each other and like we get a taste of that here. It's like we're all in our individual cells, as Grimm would say, and it's like we have this hunger for communion, and not everybody feels comfortable just walking into a credo logical church, and they can find that communion here.
Well, when I got home from work yesterday,
At least part of it. Sorry, it's not true communion, but it's still, we get the taste, and the taste keeps us going. Or something.
But that goes back to part of Tim's comment too.
Sorry, I cut off Chad, but so we have to get back to Chad. Okay.
This is a touch of communion, but it's often a touch of mercy that we get to give, and so.
Mm-hmm.
I got home from work yesterday, and my wife says, "You got something in the mail." I'm like, "Oh." Now this is the third item I got in mail. The first item I got was from Father Eric. He sent me a Christmas card, which was wonderful. And then I got a Christmas card from Gavin and his family, which was wonderful. And then I got a box from Grim Grizz.
Lord, would I love a box from Grim Grizz. That would be the best freaking Christmas present.
I want to keep that personal and between us. But there was a box that had 2 items in it. It was an inside joke thing, which was very personal. And then the card from him, which made me weep. And that's what this is about for me.
Yeah.
It's always been the person because that's something I've been trying to discern. That's why I've always been interested in Paul's Corner more than Peugeot or Vervaeke, no matter what, and because it's been about the randos, it's been about the relationships, it's been, no matter what all the words that are being thrown around, no matter all the conversations of what we talk about, the spirit has been, we value the people. That's what I've gotten out of this corner. Maybe Peugeot has that in his own corner thing. I don't know about it though. I'm not there. Maybe Vervaeke has that. But from what I've heard from people that are in the Vervaeke corner, it's not. It's mainly about impersonal practices. And I'm sure there are exceptions and ideas, but this to me is about and that's a very Rollins idea, right? That's his distinction between community and communion. Community is a bunch of people gathered around a set of ideas that are, which to me is just identitarianism. And communion is people gathered around a lack. We don't know what this is. It's people gathered around religio. Where we care about the people.
So there's this thing. I was talking with Cal. He called me the other day. We were talking about creed and confession, and I said the best embodiment of this that I know is if AA had creeds and confession, which they don't, but if they did, the creed would be the confession, or the confession would be the creed. And it is, I admit I'm powerless over alcohol, that my life's unmanageable. That's the creed, and that's the confession. And that's what we all stand on together. And so that we seek, this is what drives us to seek communion with God and with each other. Right. And then inside of that, you have all these other practices and stuff that you can do, but it's deeply personal. You can't do it alone.
Yeah. Maybe the creed at church should be rephrased to I strive to believe that this, I strive to believe this is the case and stuff, kind of in that context, because then it's also confessional in a sense, hopefully not in a bad way. I don't know. I'm not trying to, who am I to reset how we do church stuff?
Well, the thing is you're going to do that anyways, whether you tell anybody or not. So this is the idea of there's always a God of your own understanding, or a creed of your own understanding. We're not Legos.
So I'm going to want to wrap this up in a little bit because I just got to get going on to other things. But I want to ask particularly Marylander and all you guys, is part of what this live stream is about, and part of what I'm trying to work out right now is in my local estuary. I would say there's some, so whatever I've been doing in this community, the little corner, as long as I've been involved, there's some kind of spirit that brings value and meaning to me in a way that has kept me here. It has some kind of religio, because if it didn't, I would have left. and I would have not been part of it because it had nothing that held me, or it didn't have what I wanted or needed, or however you want to say that. And we're all here to some degree. How do we find that? And this is in my description, in a modern individualistic world, because I think traditionally those things were done in religious institutions and churches and things that just evolved that way. But then I think when religious institutions became, I mean, I think this is truly what happened. When they inverted the Religio and the Credo, or conflated the two, they died. God was dead. The institutions just went away.
Yeah.
And so now we're trying to find our meaning in the world and these communities. We're trying to create communion, just like out of thin air, disconnected from history. How do you do that? How do you communicate this spirit and find it locally to somebody who hasn't maybe been participating in the spirit? Because I don't even know how to talk about it.
Well, you give it. You do exactly what you are doing. Now, locally, you can do that with Estuary. You could do that with AA. You could do it in church. You do it, but you give it, and other people find it, and then they give it.
Yeah, I think that's right. You have agapic love, and you engage them in dialogos, or strive for that, and like then they will experience that spirit. The spirit will shine through your face, and they will see it, and it will move them to be obedient. They will feel called. That's what I think, or something like that.
Yeah. Can you say in a way to the person who is your cousin who has never heard any of those words before?
Well, and also you don't say, well, I'm going to set this up, and no, you just give it.
Yeah.
And it's the same answer to Tim's question. Okay, you see the homeless person, and Tim's instinct is right. Okay, take that person into your home. And if you've never done that, try it sometime. Now try it if you can do it responsibly. I wouldn't say take a homeless person into your home if you have young children, because things happen. But if you've never taken anybody into your home, try it. And then you begin to learn that it is more blessed to give than to receive. And you can't worry about, okay, this is exactly the nub of this institution thing that you're always gnawing on, Luke, that, okay, but I want it to continue to go on forever. Yes, I get that, but you just give. That's all you can do. That's all you can do. And
Are you speaking,
make somebody else receive?
Luke, are you speaking particularly about like how do we make this like actually continue to bloom and happen, or like are you speaking about in personal, like one-to-one situations? Because I do think there's a degree to which the like there is an aspect where it's also that we do have to kind of plan it out a bit in the sense of like intentional communities, perhaps, because like we are under the thumb of like the modern world is like intensely heavy on our shoulders, in the sense that like we live in these spread out areas, and we're all on our phones and stuff, and we spend our time behind cubicles, et cetera, and it's like in order to counter that, like I think it does take a certain degree of deliberate, like and I think that church definitely has a place for that. It's kind of like what do you think about this idea of like the church being non local or something like that? It's like, I guess the entry into this would be like at home services, people do that and stuff. And it's like, I don't know, like how, because I don't know, maybe I don't have, it's not that I have anything, oh man, I don't want to, we have a pastor in here, it's very difficult. So, I think like we need to, yeah, I don't know, I'm kind of out of words in the sense that I think making new churches in a way, but also like, because you can't just like get rid of the institutions that exist, and I don't want to do that. And I think that they need to, like, and all the question of reforming and all this stuff, it gets so nuanced and complicated. But the general impulse is like, how do we make the church viable again and like everywhere, in the sense that it's like we need to do something deliberate to bring that sacred space outside of the narthex. And
Well,
something like that. I don't know.
Peterson had one of these rules was like something like responsibility is found where abdication is found, or something like this. So where others have abdicated, you pick up the responsibility, and then, like, don't wait for somebody else to do it. So shit, I don't know, go rent a room at the library and talk. I don't know, go spend time with people. Go to your local Salvation Army and spend time with those people if you can find an hour.
And I also think you can do it at like a bar or something, like not to say you have to be drinking at the bar, but like, you can go to public spaces and like carry the church with you in a way.
Yes.
And
but there's also the aspect of, like, I lived overseas in a context that was completely different. And one thing that was taught me was ask for help.
Yeah.
And so there's one aspect of you doing the thing, like you being intentional and helping and loving, but there's also like ask people to help you, and that will create a bond too. Like, and I think as Americans, we're always like so reluctant like to ask for anything.
That's well said.
But like that's so helpful to just
My
ask.
Wife joined a church that we necessarily probably don't think is great, but it's perfect for us. Am I a Lutheran? I don't know, probably not, but we're there, right? So I'm also like trying to stay connected to my community through this church, even though I know it has all these things that I'm not interested in, and I think they're flawed in this way or that way or whatever. But as you said, that's my form of asking for help, but then also being out in the community this other way. You got to kind of do it both.
Yeah. I think last year we live in like in the middle of nowhere. I guess I always think of too, like our extended families. I think we forget about extended families so often, like uncles, aunts, if we have them, like cousins. And I mean, most people have some sort of extended family. And like, I think there's so many contexts that already exist for most of our lives that we would probably run out of time if we like really are intentional of not like living where you are living. Right, like going to your local library, connecting your, like inviting your aunts and uncles to come to your house for whatever. Right, like I think some of that stuff it's kind of lost.
100%, yeah,
on
definitely.
People, and that like
maybe not 100%.
To me, maybe I'm just speaking of experience. Like if I did that, I'd probably be like there'd be like a ton of community already in my life if I did it more often.
Yeah. I just want to clarify, I'm not anti-church, all right? Like, I go to church occasionally. Yeah.
You also want to clarify if you're a KKK member?
Not a KKK member, as far as I'm aware.
I don't know what's up with that, but cool.
Maybe it's because we're a bunch of white guys.
So yeah, I don't know. I mean, part of me wonders if it's is what's happening with this. Is it new wine for do we need new wineskins? Because it is true. Like it feels like everything is pushed against you. What's ironic to me is often, and I don't know how much of this is my own desire or selfishness, but like to get to do what I want to do, like to get my fix that I want, this is easier than going to Estuary. Like largely, you guys
of an Estuary though. Like this is kind of an Estuary group. I don't know a ton about Estuary, to be honest. Like I feel like this is kind of the same thing though, right? Like it's just kind of it's less formal.
I see what you're saying.
So like for me to get like in my local estuary, I don't know if I had to guess of the people that really come to the estuary, I would say definitely fewer than half are super familiar with this little corner, and some of those are more like coming from the Vervaeke side, and so there's a lot of like the real hardcore fix that I get with people that really know me, who share all my language, who like we're always talking about all the same things all the time, like that's not happening at Estuary,
Mhm.
you know?
I think
Or
it
like at
could.
my
I
church.
don't
Like
know.
I went to a men's group last night at my church. Like that's just I go to that because I want to be involved in my church and I want to interact with these guys and talk to them.
Mhm.
But like it's not, I'm just like, you guys aren't like, why are we talking about these things? Like,
You,
these
you fit better in the ladies' Bible study, Luke. Try
I
them.
probably would.
You
I
should
probably
take
would.
to jail.
Isn't it about the Religio and on the Credo? So you shouldn't care about what they're talking about.
You should
Well,
do jail ministry. Set up an Estuary meeting at the jail. You could probably do that.
Honestly,
well,
you probably find some interesting, perhaps more interesting people there as well.
well, that's
Yeah.
hard. We like my church does some jail ministries, and you can do that. But then that part of that is also the struggle of all this, the modern world and technological babble. Like that's what's so
Yeah.
weird. It's a parish model, but
Mhm.
like I'm the only one that lives in the neighborhood
hmm
where my church is. Of like all the guys at the men's group last night, like none of them even live in this neighborhood.
I don't know, man. I think you might be able to find it. And like, I think part of it may be the fact that like it's easier here. Obviously, there's the convenience of like you just pull up the,
Very
and then you
convenient.
start streaming stuff. But like, I think there's something also where it's almost like deceptively easy here, because we're not, like, it's like in person. It becomes sometimes it's like a higher challenge, but with a higher reward if you can meet the challenge. To like have conversations like this, it's like it's easy to have conversations like this when there's like no in-person stakes,
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
something like that. So, and I'm not trying to say we should stop this. I think this is great, but it's like, I don't know, man. I think you might be able to find it IRL, as they say.
I mean, I am finding it. It's just it's the
Mhm.
balance of
It is difficult. I would
doing
like,
hard things and how to cultivate this spirit and like real religio. Because that's the thing is like you could
Yeah.
go. I mean, that's part of the reason of me converting to Orthodoxy is like I wanted to get my kids in a tradition that I was confident would exist
hmm
when they were my age, and and even like Estuary. I'm just like I have a like I need to maintain. Part of this is my own neuroticism. I need to maintain enough hope that it's moving towards something that's real communion and that it is real communion. Because like if all of a sudden I don't know, I don't want to do Estuary. I feel like it's not going to be around in 5 years. Like I'll invest my time somewhere else.
Start a meeting at the jail.
Jail will be around in 5
Maybe we
years.
should get Gavin on this. Gavin was talking about like I'm not a big fan of like the church app idea, but I do think that like some technology for like bridging the gap between these digital conversations and like obviously that's what Paul is trying to do with Estuary, like largely to a large extent. But it's like, maybe there's a way where like maybe we should make like a social media platform or something like that's like called like this little corner or something, and I don't know. This is just spitball, and there's probably all sorts of flaws in this, but hopefully you can see what I'm getting at, where it's like, something to find other people that live in your area who are, I don't know, like some sort of step up from what's already going on in that regard. I don't really know. I struggle with this.
We're already using some of the most powerful tools the world has ever invented to
yeah
be found. So I think that's part of the reason that there's Estuary Hub, the website, but the truth is you're not going to beat Google and the algorithm in terms of getting found.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the reason I've sort of always had a bias for let's just use what's out there already.
Yeah.
Because once you build, I mean, this is kind of exactly what Luke says all the time. If you build your own little thing, the real odds are that would go away quicker than YouTube. So
it's just like
that's why we colonize.
Yeah. Hopefully you can see hopefully you can see what I'm saying though, in the sense that I agree with you 100%. I'm not a big fan of building in general. Like it's kind of things need to grow organically, but like
the propolicity. So like, should propolicity be something that you display, or is it a tool? Can propolicity be a tool for or agape, let's say.
I think so. Like, well, I'm reminded of propolicity. What did that remind me of? I don't know. I lost it.
All right, guys. Let's get some last words. I
Oh
gotta
yeah,
wrap this up.
propolicity. I'm reminded of what's that guy who just did the rant about the ortho bros and magic and stuff? You know what I'm talking about?
James Lindsay.
James Lindsay. Yeah, I feel like he kind of uses propolicity in a artful way to some extent, where it's like he is self-aware, almost like this meta modern thing in a way as well, where of like intentionally putting on a particular dance in order to catalyze a particular response, which is obviously dangerous. Like, I don't know if that's even the right way of putting it. More so like it's almost like a sense of irony or like not taking it seriously. With propolicity, like I think there's two sides of propolicity. It's like one where it's like somebody who cares too much about how they're seen through the internet, and then there's the other side where it's like using that, like you were saying, as a tool for like drawing awareness to the phenomena in and of itself, or whatever, however you want to say it. I don't know. Propolicity is just super salient to me. That's kind of what I jumped out at. But so much stuff. Like this is great. This is my first time doing a live stream. It's been a pleasure.
I love having you. And Tim, I want to do you have a last word? Give us a last word, what do you think about propolicity?
I don't know what the fuck that means.
I know.
One of the classic problems of this corner. Too many words.
It just sounds like you like some show that used to be on a channel called WB50. I was thinking about Luke's question and then Paul's response, and it seems to me that like in nature, whenever a community or a network emerges, it's because there is it's built on the fundamental action of sharing. And Paul used the word giving, but I like the word sharing because that's what creates the community between two actors. Is like this transfer back and forth between those two people. And I would say that you have a lot more valuable thing. Like everyone here has a lot more valuable things to share than you think you do. Luke, you made a comment when I just chatted the stream and you said, "Oh, Marylander, I was thinking about you the other day." That is going to do more for me today than you know. And regardless of whether that's my ego or that's your ego or whatever, like it doesn't matter. You shared something with me, and given my temperament, I am going to become more and more like I'm going to crave giving it back more and more and more.
Beautiful. That's a wonderful way to close. Thanks,
Good
everybody.
stuff. Yeah, good stuff.
Remember, embody.
Remember
There
and
is
body.
no agency.
All right.
Yeah.
Love you guys. Peace. Thanks for
Bye,
joining.
y'all.